기갑부대 병사들이 훈련을 준비하고 있다. 비록 전쟁은 아니지만 실전을 방불케 하는 훈련에서 이들은 세계 최고의 성능과 파괴력을 자랑하는 전차 M1A2 에이브람스에 탑승한다.
It's called the Queen of Battle because if you're an armor person who grew up in the armor branch, you perceive it to be the thing that wins wars.
뛰어난 방어 능력을 자랑하는 이 최첨단 전투기계는 어떠한 지형에서도 민첩한 움직임을 보인다.
It provides tremendous protection to the soldier, has great lethality. It strikes fear in the heart of the enemy.
1980년대 에이브람스가 세상에 나오기 전 이 전차는 많은 기술적, 정치적 난관을 넘어야 했다. 에이브람스의 성공에는 거의 1세기에 이르는 기갑전쟁의 역사도 일조를 했다. 현대전에서 전차가 처음 등장한 것은 1차 대전 당시 참호전의 교착 상태를 돌파하려던 영국과 프랑스의 노력에 의해서였다.
If you go back to World War I, where they were bogged down in the trenches, it was finally the invention of the tank and the introduction there that permitted them to break through and open up the battlefield.
The early tanks, developed by the British and the French, were an attempt to move across terrain that had been churned up by artillery fire. They had caterpillar tracks, and that enabled them to cross terrain that was too difficult for vehicles using rubber tires.
하지만 초기 전차는 적의 집중포화를 받기가 쉬웠고 기계적 고장을 일으키는 경우도 적지 않았다.
And so there were only limited successes on the part of the Allied tank attacks, although there was enough to encourage the United States to develop its own tank forces.
미국은 1차 대전 후 기갑전을 위해 병사들을 훈련시켰지만 이 분야에 많은 경비를 투입하기 꺼려했던 군은 전차가 아니라 말의 장비를 탑재하게 된다.
And they were not interested in these big clanking, smelly things that the armor people wanted to push on them. People like Eisenhower and Patton got out of armor into other parts of the army because there was no chance for advancement and it was underfunded.
1930년대 어윈 롬멜 장군이 이끄는 독일군은 강력한 기갑부대를 육성한다. 롬멜의 전차 사단은 2차 대전 초반 연합군을 거의 전멸 상태로 몰아넣는다.
Rommel was a key proponent of the German concepts for the Blitzkrieg, the lightning war. His concept of lightning-fast attacks followed up rapidly with follow-on forces in World War II, enabled them during the spring offensive in May and June 1940 to overwhelm both the British and the French forces that were arrayed against them.
Under this vast roof, dozens of tanks are going together at one time, rolling from stage to stage.
미국이 전쟁에 참가한 1941년 미드웨스트의 자동차 공장은 신속하게 생산 라인을 개조해 미국 최초의 셔먼 탱크를 제조하게 됐다. 셔먼은 독일 전차에 비해 크기와 무게, 철갑의 수준 등이 상대적인 열세에 있었다. 이 같은 약점 때문에 셔먼은 덩치 큰 독일 전차들의 손쉬운 표적이 됐다.
The Sherman turned out to be a fairly vulnerable tank. One of the reasons was that it used gasoline as its fuel, and if the tank was hit, the gasoline would burn. Soldiers on both sides started calling the Sherman the Ronson, named for the Ronson cigarette lighter.
결국 연합군 사령관 아이젠하워 장군은 탱크의 약점을 보완하도록 조치한다.
General Marshall, who was the chief of staff of the Army, essentially told General Eisenhower, look, even if I wanted to give you more protection, I couldn't move the tanks from Detroit to the seaports because they couldn't get through the tunnels or they couldn't get on the ships. They had to be moved by railroad. And they couldn't get through the railroad tunnels if they were any bigger.
그런데도 유럽에 파견된 기갑부대, 특히 기갑 전술 전문가였던 조지 C. 패튼 장군의 부대는 그런 어려움을 극복할 수 있었다. 속도면에서 우월했던 미군의 셔먼은 독일 전차의 허를 찔러 상대적으로 약한 측면과 후면을 공격했다. 또한 수적으로도 우세했다. 전쟁이 끝날 때까지 5만 대의 셔먼 탱크가 제작된 것이다.
One of the tactics they used in World War II when the Americans were up against a superior German tank, they would simply surround it and outnumber it. We might lose a few, but then eventually we would win that engagement.
소련 역시 대규모 기갑부대를 장설해 마침내 동부전선에서 독일군에게 치명타를 입힌다. 전쟁이 끝나갈 무렵 연합국도 소련의 기갑부대가 유럽에서의 승리를 달성하는 데 주요했다는 사실을 인정한다. 미군은 기갑 전술에 대한 귀중한 교훈을 갖고 귀환하기에 이른다.
And by the end of World War II, the concept of combined arms, mechanized operations, and the tank, working in close concert with tactical air support, had been firmly set in U.S. military doctrine.
하지만 종전 후 미국의 전차 개발은 그렇게 순조롭지만은 않았다. 불안한 소련과의 냉전에 정책의 초점이 맞춰지고 군 예산의 대부분은 전차가 아닌 미사일과 폭격기, 원자력 잠수함 등에 전용된 것이다.
So there was a long period after the war when the Army struggled along with what really, compared to what they might face on the battlefield, was an inferior tank. They took the basic Sherman tank from World War II and adapted it and adapted it and adapted it, but never really built a new tank.
셔먼 탱크의 개조는 M60 전차의 등장으로 이어진다. 하지만 펜타곤의 전략가들은 만약 유럽에서 지상전이 벌어질 경우 소련의 거대한 기갑부대가 미국과 나토 연합군을 압도할지도 모른다는 우려를 갖게 된다.
In the Cold War, our greatest concern was of a massive conventional attack by the Warsaw Pact against Western Europe. And as the Soviet Union upgraded its own tanks, we wanted to be in a position to have a superior weapon.
But certainly vis-a-vis the Soviet tanks, the M60 was no great shakes.
결국 1963년 로버트 맥나마라 국방장관은 미국이 독일과 제휴해 나토 국가들을 위해 우수한 전차를 개발해야 한다는 결론을 내리게 된다.
I was delighted with the results. An agreement to enter into joint research and development projects, the first of which will be the development of a new main battle tank to be jointly financed by our two countries.
MBT-70은 완성될 해를 기념해 지은 이름이었으나 이 프로그램은 곧 난관에 봉착하게 된다.
As the program matured, more and more the differences in national priorities entered into the picture.
It started to come apart on all sorts of different ways. For example, the United States used inches, the Germans used the metric system, so they finally decided that the parts that the Germans made would be metric, the parts that the Americans made would be in inches, and then a great compromise where they came together, they would be metric. The Germans won that round.
두 나라가 새로운 탱크의 디자인 개발에 골몰하는 사이 미국은 다시 전쟁에 돌입한다. 하지만 장소는 유럽의 평원이 아니라 베트남의 밀림과 논, 산악지대였다. 이곳에서 탱크는 무용지물에 가까웠다.
I commanded a cavalry troop, armored cavalry troop, and in that troop I had 9 M48A3 tanks. They could go just about any place, drive through the jungle, knock the trees down. It slowed you down, of course, but we could go just about any place. Once in a while we would get stuck in rice paddies or mud holes. There were some times during the year in the monsoon that you had to be careful what you did.
당시 미군 사령관이었던 윌리엄 웨스트모어랜드 장군은 베트남전과 같은 게릴라전에서는 탱크가 중요한 역할을 담당할 것으로 보지 않았다. 이에 따라 가장 강력한 무기로 떠오르는 것이 헬리콥터였다.
Also people who looked at the lessons of Vietnam, looked at the the air mobile ability of the Army and said that the tank is a dinosaur. We won't ever use it on the battlefield again.
그러나 탱크가 죽었다는 일부의 평가는 시기가 이른 판단이었다. 포트럭스는 보통 사람들에게 미국의 금광으로 알려져 있지만 군에 있어서 이곳은 미군 기갑 전력의 심장부다. 과거의 탱크들이 야외 조각처럼 초원 위에 펼쳐져 있다. 그 유물 중 하나가 바로 MBT-70인데 이 모델은 독일과의 협력으로 소련의 전차를 압도하고자 했던 미국의 야심찬 노력을 단적으로 보여주는 좋은 예다.
The main battle tank, which is the product of international cooperation, is a German-made automatic transmission that incorporates both converter and lock-up gear ranges.
The bureaucracy of two nations working together was in itself a formidable task.
The cost of the program kept rising, and finally Congress said, no, we don't want any more of this, stop it.
새로운 탱크 한 대에 $1,200만 달러란 거금이 투입되자 의회는 제작 프로그램을 중단하기에 이른다. 비록 제작에 착수되진 못했지만 MBT-70은 놀라운 능력을 갖춘 전차였다.
Some of the characteristics of the MBT-70 that were clearly superior. It was able to move rapidly at speeds in excess of 35 miles an hour.
The MBT-70 was made so that it could rise up, shoot, and pop back down again without moving the tank at all, except for that built-in ability to elevate itself. But of course, this all costs money, and that's one of the reasons that it went down the tubes.
MBT-70의 실패에도 불구하고 미군은 새로운 전차의 개발을 포기하지 않았다. 1973년 미군은 제너럴 모터스와 크라이슬러사의 경쟁을 통해 가장 경제적인 신형 전차를 제작할 계획을 세운다.
Build us a tank that can be produced at $508,000. It had to be better overall than the preceding M60 tank.
The Army wanted to upgrade the M60 tank. It wanted to make that tank more lethal and more survivable. And this was given a very great push by the Middle Eastern War of 1973.
1973년 10월 속죄일, 유태인의 명절 중에서도 가장 신성한 이날, 이스라엘은 이집트와 시리아의 기습 공격을 받는다. 이 전쟁에서 상당수의 미제 이스라엘 전차가 기당 $1,000에 불과한 소련제 유도 미사일로 무장한 이집트 보병들에 의해 파괴됐다.
It showed the vulnerability of the existing family of tanks because of the effective use of anti-tank weapons by the Egyptian forces and the Syrian forces. And those anti-tank weapons, of course, had been provided by the Soviet Union. Various members of Congress had been fighting tooth and nail against every military expenditure. And suddenly, after the Arab attack on Israel in 1973, they vied with one another to dump more money back into the military budget.
하지만 탱크가 전장의 왕자였던 시절은 지났다고 믿었던 대부분의 의원들은 이 분야의 예산을 낭비하는 것을 탐탁치 않게 여겼다. 게다가 전문가들은 토 유도 미사일을 장착한 적의 헬리콥터 한 대가 3km 밖에서도 아군의 관측을 피해 평균 18대의 전차를 파괴할 수 있다는 사실을 지적했다.
When you invest millions and millions of dollars, even hundreds of millions of dollars in a tank that could be knocked out by a very inexpensive anti-tank weapon, it becomes a very questionable thing. In fact, it's obvious nonsense.
하물며 보다 효과적인 레이저 유도 미사일이 개발되는 상황에서 탱크는 폐물이 될 거라는 예상이 지배적이었다.
I had expressed the opinion when I left running research and development for the Defense Department that in the long run the anti-tank system would defeat the tank.
하지만 첨단 전차의 개발을 지지했던 사람들은 전문가들이 간구했던 사실을 발견하게 된다. 새로운 대전차 화기는 화학 폭발물로 쉽게 철갑을 관통하는 성형 장약 단두를 사용했던 것이다. 하지만 영국은 성형 장약 무기에 견딜 수 있는 새로운 형태의 철갑을 개발한다.
The Army learned really by accident that the British had developed a secret new method of making armor, and they were just amazed. The shells would bounce off this stuff.
벌링턴이란 암호명이 붙은 이 철갑 덕분에 역사 속에 묻힐 뻔한 전차는 다시 화려한 부활을 예고하게 된다. 1970년대 중반, XM1이란 신형 전차가 디트로이트 근교의 공장에서 제작에 들어간다. 제너럴 모터스와 크라이슬러에서 나온 직원들이 이 공장의 한 켠씩을 차지하고 있었다. 계약을 따내려 했던 두 회사 중 부담이 더 큰 쪽은 기존의 미군 탱크를 모두 제작했던 크라이슬러였다. M48 탱크의 수석 엔지니어이자 M60의 프로젝트 매니저였던 필립 레트 박사가 크라이슬러 팀의 지휘를 맡았다.
In the early days of the program, our task force felt very keenly the need to win the tough competition we faced, and I reminded them at the outset that this was not a life and death matter. It was worse than that.
두 회사는 MBT-70과 1973년의 중동전쟁에서 얻은 교훈을 통해 각각의 모델을 제작했다. 덧붙여 육군 참모총장 크레이튼 에이브람스 장군은 승무원의 안전을 신형 전차의 최우선 가치로 여겼다.
A key person here is Creighton Abrams, who was one of Patton's young tank commanders in Europe, did some of the most spectacular tank forays against the Germans. It was he who made the decision and went for what many considered a too heavy tank because it incorporated enough armor to protect the crew.
I think in this country there is a tradition of placing high value on human life that's probably as high for any country in the world. Then it makes practical sense too. Beyond that, if your crew survives, they are able to fight another day.
영국에 의해 개발되고 미국이 발전시킨 특수 장갑 덕분에 승무원의 생존율이 높아진다. 오늘날에도 기밀에 속하는 이 다중 철갑 공법으로 인해 전차의 하중이 늘어난 것은 당연한 결과였다.
Special armor requires more volume. In several areas of the tank measured in feet and not in inches.
엔지니어들은 1500마력 엔진의 개발을 서둘렀고 탱크의 하중은 무려 약 60톤에 육박하게 된다.
Probably the most contentious and difficult question was what kind of an engine should it have? The Army for many years and the Germans had good diesel engines. They had a lot of experience with diesel engines. They liked the diesel engine.
이렇게 제너럴 모터스는 고성능 디젤 엔진을 선택하지만 크라이슬러는 전에 없던 새로운 도전에 착수한다. 헬리콥터와 제트기에 사용되는 것과 유사한 터빈 엔진을 장착한 것이다.
We chose the turbine primarily because of its reliability. There was another advantage to the turbine, and that was its light weight. It was about 2,000 pounds lighter than the diesel that we were comparing it to at the time. And this meant that within our weight budget, we could put more of the weight into armor.
조용한 터빈 엔진은 적의 탐지를 피할 수 있었고 순간 가속력도 뛰어났다.
It can go from a standing start to quite fast in a very short time. It can go 60 miles an hour. It can jump over obstacles with this turbine engine, but also it will use up an awful lot of fuel.
There was great question, even within the Army, whether we should move to this new kind of powertrain as opposed to the tried and true diesel engine.
It was risky. We were not at all sure that this would succeed or be blessed for the Army because no other tank in the world had a turbine engine.
1970년대 재정적인 곤란을 겪고 있던 크라이슬러로서는 반드시 계약을 따내야만 할 절박한 상황에 처해 있었다.
They went to a kind of a shootout where they demonstrated the tanks, and it seemed that General Motors had won. They were ready to pull out the champagne, but then there were some doubts. Is that really the tank we want? So in a very controversial decision, the Army went back and said, well, we're going to have a little bit more competition.
레트 박사가 이끄는 크라이슬러 팀은 제너럴 모터스보다 낮은 가격을 제시할 수 있는 방법을 모색했다.
Chrysler went to their suppliers and said, let's get these costs down, and they came back, and at that time the decision was, well, Chrysler wins.
이 신형 탱크는 기존의 전차와는 전혀 다른 모습을 보여준다.
For the first time in a tank that I'm aware of, we separated from the crew all of the combustibles, the fuel behind armor in the front, the ammunition behind even thicker armor in the rear of the vehicle, so that when it was hit by enemy fire, as sometimes will happen in war, the ammunition would explode and blow-off panels would allow the fire that resulted to be exhausted away from the crew without injury to the crew.
승무원들은 열감지 조준경을 통해 야간에도 표적을 정확히 식별할 수 있다. 특히 최신식 디지털 장비와 컴퓨터는 한도화기의 정확성과 여타 기능을 향상시켰다. 그리고 무엇보다 혁신적인 것은 레이저 거리계로 이동 중에 사격을 해도 정지 상태와 거의 차이가 없이 정확성을 보인다는 점이었다.
We had to come up with a stabilization system that would keep the line of sight of the gunner on the target as the vehicle was going cross-country, bouncing, pitching, rolling, etc. And it's much easier to stabilize with gyros the lightweight mechanism of crosshairs in the sight than the gun itself. This is 12 feet of steel out there that bends and moves, and what we did with the inhibitor circuit was to allow the gun to fire only as it came into coincidence with the line of sight of the gunner.
기술적 개선이 더 필요하다는 일부의 주장을 뒤로하고 1981년 캐스퍼 와인버거 국방장관은 이 전차의 제작에 착수할 것을 지시한다.
It had been in development so long because every 6 months or so somebody would decide something new that they wanted on it. And you had to come to finality and build what you had if you wanted to have a better tank available quickly.
1982년, 1960년대 초기부터 미군이 추구하던 신형 전차가 마침내 세상의 모습을 드러낸다. 1974년 참모총장으로 근무하다 순직한 크레이튼 에이브람스 장군의 이름을 따서 M1 에이브람스로 불리게 된 이 신형 전차는 나토 군사훈련에서 일각의 비판을 영원히 잠재운다.
The M1 Abrams tank has a 105mm main gun. Dieser Panzer hat eine 105mm Kanone.
And this tank won all of the prizes, as so to speak, that the NATO contests for effective deployment and effective targeting accuracy, mobility, degree to which it could be protected, and all the rest. It was a very, very good tank.
새로 제조된 M1 에이브람스는 대부분 미군 기갑부대가 주둔하고 있던 독일로 배치된다.
The M1 tank was such an improvement over everything that had gone before that our soldiers, from the youngest to the battalion commanders just like me, fell in love with our new vehicle. One of the things that occurred to my driver as we were driving our new M1 through a maneuver course, he said, "Colonel, this is just like driving a jet plane on tracks." And he was right.
It could fire faster, it could fire on the move. The armor was described to us as being basically impenetrable by any known anti-tank weapon that the Soviet Union at the time could fire at us. So one of the big points for the soldiers was the survivability of the tank.
M1 탱크는 소련 침공으로부터 유럽을 방어하는 데 중추적 역할을 담당한다.
It was very important to have the M1 tank when we were talking about a major land war in Europe, or deterring a major land war in Europe, which you did not only by the strategic deterrent, but also by the forces in place there that made the Soviets at least think twice about whether they could sweep to the Channel within 30 days.
하지만 1989년 베를린 장벽이 무너지자 유럽에서 대규모 전면전의 위협은 사라지고 소련은 붕괴되기 시작한다. M1 탱크는 유럽에서 실전에 투입되지 않았지만 곧 또 다른 임무가 주어진다. 에이브람스 전차는 유럽에서 발발할 전쟁을 위해 제작됐지만 실제로 첫 번째 활약을 보인 것은 1991년 걸프전이 발발한 이라크의 황량한 사막이었다.
All of those things that the Army had worked out were turned out to be very applicable to the situation when Iraq invaded Kuwait and we decided to respond.
사막의 폭풍 작전엔 에이브람스를 개조한 M1A1 전차가 투입된다. 보다 강력해진 120mm 주포가 최초의 105mm 포를 대체하고 이에 덧붙여 철갑이 더욱 강화된 것은 물론 위성을 통한 위성 항법 시스템을 포함한 신기술이 추가된다.
The importance too in maneuvering on terrain that has no visual reference in most cases, very much like navigating at sea, was the use of the global positioning systems that were provided to armored force commanders.
사막에서 이 시스템의 효과는 100% 입증됐다.
Armored units and armored cavalry units could move with certainty across this trackless waste in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq with the use of the global positioning system.
하지만 연합군이 사담 후세인과의 전쟁을 준비하는 데에는 시간이 걸렸다.
In the Gulf War, it took us 3 months to flow the forces, to put them in place. And we were lucky that Saddam Hussein sat there and gave us the opportunity to flow the forces and did not attack at a time when we were most vulnerable, when we didn't have our heavy forces there.
에이브람스 전차의 배치가 늦어진 것은 미국과 독일의 기지에서 특수 화물선에 선적되거나 전차를 탑재할 수 있는 유일한 군용기인 C-5 수송기를 이용해 한 번에 한 대씩 공수하는 방법밖에 없었기 때문이다. M1A1 한 대의 무게는 67톤에 이른다.
It's very heavy, and it requires its own transport vehicles, and it requires a service vehicle to be nearby. It also is not very good on gas mileage.
It's not all the tank's fault. The entire force is big and cumbersome and heavy.
1986년 M1A1의 배치가 시작됐지만 대부분의 전차 승무원들은 이라크에 대한 아군의 공습이 끝나기를 기다려야 했다. 결국 미 육군은 강력한 주포를 장착한 M1A1만 지상 공격에 투입시키고 M1 전차는 작전에서 제외시키기로 결정한다.
The Army's out here, and there's no problem with us. We're pretty squared away. We have enough water. We have enough fuel. We can survive out here. We can live out here, and we can fight out here.
기갑부대 병사들은 훈련지인 독일과는 전혀 다른 지형에서 싸우는 법을 배워야 했다.
We were used to close-in corridors, restricted areas that would be a European fight. Now we're open spaces as far as you could see. The maneuver exercises and training preparation allowed us to adjust rapidly.
1991년 2월 지상전이 시작되자 최첨단 무기 M1A1의 효력이 입증되기에 이른다.
The vehicles out in that desert environment, once you were adapted to it, it was the best ride in town. It was 70 tons going across open desert where no one had been in before. I mean, you didn't see a camel, you didn't see a goat, you didn't see a footprint.
First tank into Iraq!
전차는 모래 폭풍이나 화염에 휩싸인 쿠웨이트 유정이 내뿜는 검은 연기 속에서도 민첩한 움직임을 보였다. 열감지 장치를 사용하는 미군 조종사들은 이라크군과 소련제 T-72 탱크를 압도할 수 있었다.
And we could engage from ranges that the Iraqis couldn't even see us. 3 kilometers, 2 miles, essentially in the dark, in the bad weather, using the thermal sights. They couldn't even tell what direction the fire was coming from.
제리 위도위치 대령은 사막의 폭풍 작전에서 제1기갑 여단을 지휘했고 그의 부대는 2월 26일 밤 이라크군과 첫 전투를 벌인다.
We had attacked all night with no real heavy resistance. I mean, they were so overmatched, and their tanks disappeared immediately with the first line of engagement by ours.
거칠 것이 없었던 대령의 여단은 2월 27일 아침 예정보다 훨씬 앞서 진군을 계속하고 있었다.
When we came up out of the wadi or the valley that morning at about 11:30 and encountered a dug-in brigade, it was a bit of a surprise.
그들을 맞이했던 건 마디나 능선을 따라 매복하고 있던 이라크 공화국 수비대였다.
You know, they suddenly popped up on the horizon, but we were in excess of 4,000 meters, which was well beyond their range, so that when we began to engage them, they didn't know if it was from the air, from the ground, or where it was coming from until the thunder began to roll of the cannons firing on the horizon.
Gator 6, the Red 1, destroyed 2 tanks.
미 기갑여단은 육안으로 이라크군을 식별할 수 없는 거리에 있었지만 열감지 장치엔 표적이 정확히 나타났다. 탄도미사일 컴퓨터가 유도하는 포격에는 오차가 없었다.
They would stay and die, or they would run and die, or they would run away from their vehicles. And some chose to do a little bit of each. And that fight lasted about 45 minutes, one brigade against another brigade. And at the end of the day, the score was 116-0 in our favor. All the vehicles were destroyed, which was our principal target.
이라크군의 몰락은 군 당국과 첩보기관마저 놀라게 할 만큼 너무나 손쉬운 승리였다.
The expectations before the war in the desert were casualties as high as 10,000. Why did we think that? Well, they had T-72 tanks. They had been in a war with Iran for 8 years. What we didn't realize is the technological advantage we had over the T-72s that they were equipped with.
No. Okay. It's all right.
The Russian design and built tanks used by Iraq had one fundamental, I'll call it catastrophic flaw. And whenever the tank was punctured or pierced by an enemy projectile, the ammunition was ignited, it blew up, and when that happened, almost all of the turrets of those tanks were blown off, and of course the people were instantly killed and destroyed.
이라크는 3,000대가 넘는 전차를 잃었지만 걸프전에 투입된 미국의 M1A1은 1,800대 중 18대만이 피해를 입었다.
Any Abrams which were destroyed on the battlefield in the Gulf, in the Desert Storm battles, were destroyed by other U.S. tanks. It was essentially friendly fire, fratricide.
We had tanks that were hit. No American tanker lost his life in Desert Storm as a result of enemy activity.
하지만 사막의 폭풍작전에서 거둔 M1A1의 승리는 오래가지 못했다. M1A1 같은 탱크가 현대전에는 적합하지 않다는 새로운 예상이 나왔기 때문이다. 사실 걸프전의 끝은 냉전의 종식을 의미하는 것이었다. 소련을 비롯한 바르샤바 조약기구의 몰락과 함께 미국의 군 예산은 축소 일로에 들어선다.
President Bush laid out a plan for reducing the armed forces by about 40%. And in that environment, there were a lot of people who were asking, what is the role of the Army in a post-Cold War world?
군은 차세대 에이브람스 M1A2의 개발을 지도하지만 의회는 이 프로그램을 후원하는 데 소극적이었다.
We're proud to serve. We need your support for a budget which is drastically changed from the budgets of the past. We found ourselves in the position after the Gulf War of having so much downward pressure on the Army budget and convinced people that it was appropriate to have a new model tank where we just couldn't close the deal, so to speak.
역설적으로 이 프로그램을 지속시킨 것은 구형 전차를 M1A2로 교체하려던 사우디였다.
They chose to purchase the M1A2 at a time when we did not have the resources and the political support or the support within the Department of Defense to do that. Was, I suppose, ironic in a sense, but certainly very beneficial and kept the production line open.
마침내 의회는 기존의 에이브람스를 M1A2로 업그레이드하는 데 동의한다. 하지만 탱크 프로그램에 대한 의회의 반감은 비단 돈 문제에 국한된 것이 아니라 탱크를 구시대의 유물로 여긴 데서 비롯된 것이었다.
And as I would talk to senators and congressmen about what the Army's needs were, especially in recapitalizing our equipment, part of what I would hear is, well, if what you want this new money for is to invest in 70-ton tanks and Cold War legacy platforms, I'm not sure I want you to have the money. Because I don't think that is the weapon system of the future.
Much of the motivation for improving tanks has weakened. In the first place, there is no threat out there at all comparable to that which was represented by the Warsaw Pact.
이와 함께 전문가들은 걸프전 당시 투입이 지체됐던 기갑부대의 예를 지적했다. 국제적인 사태에 즉각적으로 투입이 가능한 병력이 필요하다는 것이다. 군은 전차, 전사가 아닌 평화유지군이나 경찰 업무를 요구받고 있다.
The threats are different now. You've got to be able to get to the hotspots faster, and your 70-ton tanks will never get there. They can't operate in many parts of the world because they're too heavy for the bridges, they're too heavy for the roads, they're too wide for the narrow streets. And as you see the world becoming much more urbanized, fighting in cities becomes a real challenge.
탱크 부족 현상은 미국이 발칸반도에 진입할 때, 특히 1999년 코소보에서 극명하게 드러났다.
The tank itself was designed for employment where there is a supportable infrastructure. In the case of the Balkan area, much of that infrastructure was archaic and would not support the full mix of vehicles.
That was a 78-day war. It was over before you could have gotten ground troops to the fight. And that was one of the big lessons for the Army. Namely that if you can't get to the fight, you're not relevant. If the Army's future just lay in 70-ton tanks, we were not going to be relevant to the future fights. We were not going to get the funding and support that we needed for Congress. We were not going to play the role that we needed to play to properly defend the nation.
새로운 현실을 자각한 루이스 칼데라 미 육군 장관과 육군 참모총장 에릭 신세키 장군은 분쟁 지역에 신속하게 투입 가능한 임시적 성격의 중간급 화기부대의 육성을 계획하고 있다.
The Chief of Staff of the Army's current goal is to be able to move a brigade-like capability in 96 hours anywhere in the world.
이 계획에는 탱크 대신 경무장 차량과 미래형 전투 차량으로 구성된 7개 여단이 필요하며 M1A2를 보유한 3개 여단이 유사시를 대비한 예비부대에 소속될 것이다.
The world has changed, but there are still a lot of folks that could be enemies that have large numbers of tanks that we could possibly have to fight in the near future. But the challenges that we face are much different than fighting a tank battle. The challenge of Bosnia, of Kosovo, the challenge now of terrorism in Afghanistan requires a different focus for our fighting force.
현재 워싱턴의 포트 루이스에서는 외국에서 임대한 경무장 차량과 함께 훈련 중인 2개 여단이 있다. 궤도가 아닌 바퀴로 움직이는 미국의 차량은 2002년부터 생산이 시작됐다.
In signaling that we were really looking for something revolutionary, we made the statement that this might be a wheeled vehicle, that it wouldn't necessarily have to be a tracked vehicle, that we wanted people to think out of the box.
If you've ever been a tanker and you threw a track, you only throw them one time because it is a lot of hard work to get it back put on. So I think operationally, the wheels do have an advantage. Wheels can travel faster on high-speed roads, good roads. They're equally good in most off-road terrain.
또한 군은 70톤에 이르는 에이브람스보다 훨씬 가볍지만 비슷한 위력을 발휘하는 미래형 전투 차량 제작의 가능성을 모색하고 있다.
That takes a leap in technology. And all sorts of technologies are being looked at. Stealth technology, having a false image projected so that when they do shoot at you, it misses your vehicle and hits your image.
It may fly, who knows? I mean, it may levitate off the ground. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't think anybody does.
그 사이에도 포트녹스의 기갑부대 병사들은 M1의 최신 버전이며 세계에서 가장 정교한 탱크인 M1A2 셉 전차의 시뮬레이션 훈련에 여념이 없다.
They have sights that can see twice as far as we did in the desert, in Desert Storm. They have a higher level of protection. The lethality that comes within their weapon systems are beyond comparison anywhere in the world.
조정수는 분리된 열감지 장치를 통해 사수가 첫 번째 표적을 조준하는 동안 다음 표적을 찾아낼 수 있다. 이 스크린은 아군과 적군의 상황을 동시에 보여주며 사격은 거의 100%의 명중률을 자랑한다.
You have to make a very big mistake or do it on purpose to miss the target.
And when artillery is able to shoot the first round out of its tube within 1 meter of the enemy target and kill it, that's close enough.
오늘날 이 최첨단 전투병기는 미국 기갑부대의 자부심이지만 채 20년이 가기 전에 이들은 일선에서 물러나 자신들의 조상처럼 포트녹스의 잔디를 장식하게 될 것이다.
Eventually, the Abrams may be the last tank that was produced, and the tank will have played a glorious role in defending and protecting our nation and our freedoms. But like all things, there will be a day when it passes.
그날이 올 때까지 에이브람스는 세계 최고의 전차라는 명성을 이어갈 것이다.